Welcome to Healing Wisdom, a Thursday morning talk show featuring guests sharing their stories and knowledge. We discuss the healing aspects of the arts, metaphysics, social justice, and adventure through all types of terrain. So join me, Pandora Peoples, here on WOMR 92.1 FM in Provincetown and WFMR 91.3 FM in Orleans. We're streaming worldwide at WOMR.org. My guest today is visual, conceptual, and performance artist and environmental activist Jay Critchley. Welcome, Jay. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
So we met at the Provincetown International Film Festival where you hosted some local filmmakers at a meetup at your underground septic theater. I would love for you to tell us about the significance of the septic theater and just how underground do you have to be to perform there?
Well, it depends on your spiritual connection to the universe. Because if we're living above ground in a cloud, what is our relationship to the underground? So that's what it's this conscious, subconscious demarcation that we all deal with every day in our lives. So to me, the deeper you can get underground, the more you're able to appreciate the fresh air above ground.
I spent some time in your dead Christmas tree temple for the Madonna of the Four Vacuums, all of the Four Winds, in your outdoor artscape. So have you always been an installation artist, and how did moving to Provincetown transform you or your art?
Now, that's a big one. Well, starting with the installation in my backyard, which last winter, after the big Christmas storm, there was a lot of erosion. And when I was out on the back shore, there were piles of roots and branches that I'd never seen before. The erosion had brought them up onto the beach. And I was kind of, drawn to them. And I hauled them all back to my yard. And I thought, okay, I'm going to redesign my whole backyard. I decided to create this grotto. And it's sort of, I think it's about 15 feet in diameter, a circular space made out of these roots and branches and with some discarded Christmas trees from the dump. And so I called it the Rerooters Resort Grotto. It's a space that kind of reflects and mimics the circular space of the septic theater in the ground. So they kind of align with each other like the stars. It's really a space for the community to use. It's a gathering space. And so above this circular grotto is a giant circular wreath that somebody was driving it to the dump, and my friend said, hey, bring that over to Jay's place. So it's about a 10-foot in diameter wreath. So anyway, it's a space for meditation, for dinner for two, for performance, maybe for some intimate connections. You never know.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. That's my recent project that I created this year.
Yeah. So can you talk about the word rerooters and where your New Year's celebration came from?
I was at the Provincetown dump, the landfill we call it now, in the early 80s. And that was a time when there was no recycling. Everything was just piled up, meat and chicken bones and turkey bones and, Christmas wrappers and after Christmas. And there were all these trees just lying around on this pile of garbage. And I thought, well, let's create a forest. So I stood up all these, discarded Christmas trees in the dump itself. So it became a forest dump. And then, of course, Forrest Gump stole the idea. This happens. So I got the idea, well, what if we could try to reroot these trees, to put them in the ground and see if we can grow them again. So I started putting these dead Christmas trees around town. And that's kind of the beginning of the idea of rerooting. And so it's about reclaiming our connection with our intelligent relatives, the insects and the animals, the bacteria that we are, part of. They're our kin. that is kind of the concept, is to reimagine what the world would be like if we all related to all living things equally, and non-living things as well.
For years now, you've embodied Miss Tampon Liberty, and you are the CEO of Tacky Tampon Applicator Creative Clubs International. As the oldest son and the brother of 6 sisters, how many bathrooms did you share? Did seeing their hygiene rituals have anything to do with your eco-consciousness?
The first 6 of us, Irish Catholic American family, were born within 5 years. So I'm actually an Irish twin, which I was born in January. My sister Jerry was born in December of the same year.
Wow.
So, we had one bathroom, one full bathroom with a handheld shower. There wasn't even a shower. It was just a bathtub, basically. So it was a little hectic getting out of, to school in the morning. With 6 sisters, I never saw a tampon in the house, it's this invisibility, this, like it's secret, of course, this is way back. It was when I started collecting the plastic tampon applicators off the beaches in 1979, that was the most prevalent discard on the beach at the time, because the Boston sewage system was dumping them into the bay. Every time it rained, everything went into the bay and they floated across, and of course there are no boundaries there. You can find them all over the world. I've had people send them to me from Asia and Japan and places in South America. So anyway, I started collecting them, and I was, had them around my house. I was making things with them. Someone said, "What, do you know what those are?" I'm like, "No." So that took me on an incredible journey of following, the whole idea of menstruation and the toxic shock syndrome and the toxicity of menstrual products, as well as the effect of the materials in the ocean, marine debris, but also to the source of these products, which is fossil fuels. And unfortunately, we're all very aware now of plastics. It's a big issue. What do we do about plastics? How do we get rid of them? Are we making too much? But the reality is that we've been lied to, and we've been hoodwinked by the fossil fuel companies into feeling guilty that it's our fault, that climate change is our fault because we're using these plastic products, and that we need to recycle our way out of this. They have, given us that lie, and we have bid it and taken it. The reality is that the fossil fuel industry is subsidized and heavily subsidized by the government, and that's where we need to be looking, is to stop these subsidies, because basically the plan is that we're still creating new oil sites. We're still digging for oil in Alaska, other places, despite all the, opposition. So it's a major issue, but really we need to look at fossil fuels.
Recuerdo si un ayer que fue pasión, el suave titilar que ayer yo vi en tu dulce mirar.
That was Eliana Cuevas with Como Llora una Estrella. This is Healing Wisdom. I'm Pandora Peoples. Our guest today is artist Jay Critchley. You were the keynote speaker at a recent convention in Scotland. Can you share a bit about that experience?
Yes. A woman named Camilla from Norway came across my work several years ago and became very interested. She's doing research on women's health and menstrual products. And so we started communicating, and she wrote a couple of articles in some of her journals. And so I was invited to be the keynote speaker at this conference in St. Andrews in just a month or two ago. The conference was on menstruation and sustainability. So there were mostly research faculty, people, doing research from like 15 countries around the world and dealing with issues of menstruation, of plastics toxicity. And it was in Scotland. Now, Scotland is the first country to provide universal menstrual products for free. Everyone gets free menstrual products, which is a real great because, they're an issue for a lot of girls and young women, can't afford it. There's still a lot of stigma about it. So I gave a talk as the keynote speaker, and then I put on my Miss Tampon Liberty gown and, led people down to the beach. It's right on the North Sea. And so I walked down to the beach, and the beach has these 200-foot cliffs and a castle on top of it. And I did a ceremony and ritual there with music, with a song, and it was incredible, really. It was fun.
Tell us about Day Without Oil.
Well, that's a project I started maybe 15, 20 years ago. It started with the idea of Day Without AIDS. Yeah. World AIDS Day started out basically as a day without art because so many artists were dying of AIDS in the 80s. And then it became World AIDS Day. So my idea was that if everyone stopped using oil for a day, how much money would be saved or donated, asking people to donate the amount to an organization that's fighting AIDS or environmental organization. So I figured out how many gallons a person used a day and how much that was worth. And so it was just the idea of reckoning with the numbers, what do we actually, each person average use? So that was one of the projects. A Day Without Oil was like, let's imagine, and then maybe it could be 2 days without oil, and maybe it could be a year without oil. And of course, we know there's a transition, but it needs to happen more quickly.
All circles become a circus. My heart feels like obsidian. Cold shadows left to follow.
So here in Provincetown, you gave a TED Talks about being a corporation.
Well, yes. A lot of my work dating back to the early 80s was recognizing that the corporations have an undue influence in our society. I mean, this is even long before Citizens United, which the Supreme Court decision, which allowed corporations to basically give as much money as they want to individual political candidates. So I was concerned back in the 80s. So I set up a number of corporations. I have about a dozen corporations that I become CEO of, president. It provides me a platform of influence, an influencer as a president of CEO of TACI or the NRC, the Nuclear Recycling Consultants, or the IRS. My rerouters ceremony I do every year is sponsored by the IRS, which is the International Rerouter Society. So I did a TEDx talk called The Portrait of an Artist as a Corporation. So what I was saying was that if corporations can be individuals, which is what the Supreme Court has stated, which is preposterous, but that's what's going on, they have the rights of individuals, then why can't I be a corporation? Why can't individuals be corporations? That would give me great bankruptcy protection and tax write-offs and all kinds of legal protection as a corporation. If they're going to share the rights that I have as an individual, then we should be able to become. So that was the concept. When I appear as a president of a corporation, I have my suit and tie on, and sometimes I'll give a press conference or I'll speak as CEO, depending on where I'm, speaking or where I'm asked to talk.
So you say in this talk, the personal is planetary. So do you think we all need our own brand of brazen? Should we all incorporate?
Not a bad idea. Well, I came up with the idea personal is planetary from personal is political from the women's movement. So it's sort of taking it to the next level. So the personal is planetary. So really we all need to be thinking, beyond not only ourselves, but to the earth and obviously to the environment. And one project I did related to that was global yawning. So it became evident to me in my research that when we yawn, it cools our brain. And, there's a lot of studies showing. It also, with penguins, it's actually sort of a mating ritual, is yawning. So I thought, okay, if everyone in the world yawned, if we had a yawning day, it would cool the planet.
It would definitely cool our brain.
Global yawning.
Yes, yeah. Our collective brains. Yeah.
Think what that would do to the synapses in our brains and the synapses in the land.
Mm-hmm. That was Onye Fiore with Feel the Light. You've been taking the prayer ribbons for the Pulse nightclub shooting in Florida to Orlando.
Yes.
They were most recently displayed outside Orlando City Hall. Can you talk about this memorial?
Yeah, the prayer ribbon started at the Swim for Life. This is our 36th year this year on September 9th. If you'd like to swim or kayak or volunteer, please join us, swim4life.org. So we started them when we were at the boat slip. We needed some visual witnessing of the event on this fantastic space. We came up with the idea of 5-foot-long colored prayer ribbons. People could write messages on them, but not just to people who have died, but people that you want to honor in your life, people that are part of our network of caring in the community. So right now we have around 4,000 ribbons. And so when the Pulse nightclub shooting happened in 2016, my board of the Provincetown Community Compact and the Swim for Life people, we just said we have to do something. And so we decided to create a special strand of ribbons for the victims of the shooting. So we took a 40-foot strip of colored ribbons that already had messages on them, and we intertwined the 49 black ribbons with the names in gold of all the victims on the strand of ribbon. We had a ceremony at Town Hall, and then we were invited to come down to Orlando. We met privately with the families of the victims. We actually have a video on our website, thecompact.org, about this journey of the prayer ribbons, which Lise King produced and directed. And so we've been down there almost every year except during COVID. And I just returned recently. June 12th is the anniversary. So I went down there, and there's a ceremony at the ribbons in front of City Hall, and the mayor and myself and other people are speaking about this gift to the city that every year we're invited to come.
If you're just joining us now, you're listening to Healing Wisdom on Outermost Radio. I'm Pandora Peoples, and we're speaking with visual conceptual performance artist and environmental activist Jay Critchley. Your Swim for Life, can you talk about how it began, and then also at what temperature will the ocean need to be to officially change it for Swim for Your Life?
Well, it already is Swim for Your Life. The water temperature, I would say, has increased at least 5 degrees or more in just the last 5 or 10 years. It used to always be like in the low 60s, give or take a few degrees. But the last few years, it's been 70-something degrees. It's, the event actually started as an environmental idea. My friend Walter and I were swimming at the Boat Slip Beach in 1988, and it was the year that there was a lot of marine debris and needles and stuff washing up on beaches around New England. They were actually closing beaches, kind of for the first time. And we were looking at magnificent Provincetown Harbor and saying, we have this incredible resource, this beautiful space here. Why don't we celebrate it? So eventually, we got a boat and we went over to Long Point and we swam across because people said, the bluefish are feeding. There weren't any sharks. No one was talking about sharks back then, although they were around. Anyway, so we did the swim, and then 2 weeks later, we announced we were doing this. We said, let's do a benefit for AIDS. So that was the first swim in 1988.
And has it changed over the years?
Certainly, it's evolved organically. A few years after we started it, like the first year, all we had on the beach was a jug of water, and we hadn't even thought like how were we going to get back from Long Point. We started at the beach, swam to Long Point, and then we're like, oh, how are we going to get back to town? We had to wave down at one of the fishing boats. Could you take us back? And I'd say the third year we realized, that we needed wetsuits. It would be good to have wetsuits to loan to people, which we do now. And then a couple years later, Helen Rzuski started the Mermaid Brunch, which was to have this big event and feed people, have entertainment after the swim. So that evolved. And then it just sort of grew, organically every year. Some years there were more people. Eventually it ended up being like 400 swimmers from around the world, all over New England, all over the U.S. And we always had an artist that created a design. This year, Erna Partol has this fabulous design you'll see on T-shirts, which are available at Siemens Bank downtown. And it's called New Day's Promise. Yeah, I would say, and of course we've raised a lot of money. And then during the pandemic, we had people swimming in place around the country in 33 states. People have that much passion for Provincetown that they were creating an event in a swimming pool, a river, a lake, to support Provincetown.
And this is happening this year, September 9th.
Yeah, the 36th annual.
And folks can register. Can they register same day at the Cannery Wharf?
People can register the same day, but we like to encourage people to register ahead of time, and they can set up their own personal funding page and collect funds and donations from their friends.
Folks can go to swimforlife.org to register and get more details.
Yes.
WOMR is a sponsor.
WOMR is a sponsor. We have a number of sponsors. We have about 20 sponsors this year. I don't know if you want me to read them, but Farland, Venezis, of course, Siemens Bank is our lead sponsor. They provide volunteers. We sell the shirts there. They handle all the money the day of the swim. Arts Dune Tours, the Funk Bus, Bay State Cruise, Cranberry Square Dermatologist, M.A. Fraser Disposal, the Boat Slip, Tito's Handmade Vodka, the Paulette Fund, Lobster Pot, Berta Walker Gallery, Scott Allegretti, Masthead Resort and Cottages, Cape Air, Premier Real Estate, Coyote Kayak, Sal's Place, Harbor Dental Associates, Gramercy Park Foundation, and WOMR. Like, really great support. And I'd like to say that the beneficiaries, could I say who? The beneficiaries, the primary beneficiaries are the AIDS Support Group of Cape Cod, helping our women in Outer Cape Health Services. And we also support the Provincetown Rescue Squad, the Soup Kitchen in Provincetown, Provincetown Schools, the Compact Community Fund, Accessible Provincetown, West End Racing Club, Cape Cod Children's Place, Natureland Conservancy, and the Lily House.
That was Hobomok from Hiroya Tsukamoto. Can you talk about the importance of ceremony? Why do we need ritual? Why do we need ceremony?
Well, ritual is a visceral way for us to come together, especially with COVID and, all this Zoom meetings, these, impersonal virtual connections. But I think deep down in our soul, we're screaming to find a way to find meaning, to find connection, to find a way to transcend, as my mother would say, the vicissitudes of life. Life is a vale of tears. We need to find the joy. So the ritual is a way to remind us that we are all connected. And we're not just connected to each other, we're connecting to our intelligent, non-human and human creatures that we inhabit in this ecosystem. So that is kind of what I see it as about.
Beautiful. Wonderfully said, Jay Critchley. Thank you so much for being with us
What
today.
A pleasure, and thank you for doing this show.
You've been listening to Healing Wisdom at Outermost Radio. All of our shows are podcasts at WOMR.org. Also check out healingwisdomradioshow.com and contact me at pandora@WOMR.org. Our theme music is provided by Mason. You can find her website at masonmusic.com. That's MAESYN.